Live stream team, are you there? Can you hear any of us? Can you guys hear me? We can't hear the live stream people who are speaking in the sanctuary. We can't hear the music at all.
Yes. Yeah, I can't either.
Yeah, I can't either.
They got everything down back. I feel like rubbing it in.
We cannot hear nothing in the church. Well, I can't.
But y'all got
Yeah, I can't either.
Ooh, your miracle. Oh, look what the Lord has done. Hey, yeah, look what the Lord has done. Ah, look what the Lord has done. Ooh. Hey, what's the use of that voice if the world can't hear you sing? If your mouth is always closed, you would never be a miracle. And what's the use of that life if no one sees you love? You just be a bag of bone and blood, and you never be a miracle. Tonight I'm looking right at you. Let me tell you what you are. Yes, you're a miracle. Ooh, you're a miracle. Ooh, you're a miracle. Ooh, you're a miracle. Yeah.
Let's make sure this is on. All right. Thank you so much, Felina. Unity is a positive, practical approach for spiritual living based on the teachings of Jesus and the power of prayer. We believe that there is truth and beauty in every spiritual tradition, and so we honor the many paths to the one God. Wherever you are on your journey of faith, you are always welcome here. Here at Unity on the North Shore, we see our purpose as creating a safe space where people are empowered to take risks and to live fully into their deepest truth. If this is your first Sunday with us, we want to extend a special welcome. Many of us were surprised to learn upon coming here to UNS that there was a spiritual community that thought and believed the same things we did. And about 8 years ago, when John and I first sat in the sanctuary, we felt like we had finally come home. So we hope that your experience today is equally powerful and that you'll return. All right, please stand as you're able to join in our group song with Felina and Jonathan.
joy. Spirit flows through me. I've got joy of God in everything I do. I've got joy more abundantly. I've got peace more abundantly. I've got peace. Spirit flows through me. I got peace of God in everything I do. I've got peace more abundantly. I've got strength more abundantly. I've got strength. Spirit flows through me. I've got strength of God in everything I do. I've got strength more abundantly.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Bruce, and I am the chaplain today, the prayer chaplain today, and it's good to see all of you here today and those who are following online as well. I will be available after the service at the prayer candle for those who are here, and those who are online are invited to place your prayer requests in the chat box. Those in the sanctuary will find prayer requests in the back of the pew, back of the seat in front of you. So as you listen to my voice, take this moment to center yourself and to be aware of the peace that is within you. And as I read today, the daily word for Sunday, May 29th, 2022. The love in my heart is my comfort. If the sadness of loss diminishes my joy, as I think of happy experiences with the loved ones who are no longer with me, I remember that the love we shared will bind us together always. Love can never die. Love, the most beautiful attribute of God, is present always and everywhere. We are comforted as our heart opens to the divine love within us, knowing that this same love enfolds all of those we hold dear, no matter where they are on the eternal journey of life. Peace and strength grows in our awareness as we open ourselves to love's expression. We bless everyone who comes to mind today with a loving thought. We speak a loving word or perform a simple act of kindness whenever we can. As we bring comfort to others, we are comforted also. Psalm chapter 119, verse 76 says, "Let your steadfast love become my comfort, according to your promise to your servant. The love in my heart is my comfort." And today, let us center ourselves and rest in the silence as we hold in prayer ourselves and all of our loved ones. And together we affirm the presence of God within us, that love in our hearts that is eternal and always present. And we hold in prayer all those who are suffering worldwide. And today we affirm the presence of God's love, grace, and guidance in every person, in every human condition. And so it is. Amen.
Me and Fear, we had a thing in 1993. Told me I was wasting time with all these silly dreams. I dated Doubt, she knocked me down every time I try. But I found joy in my life. Sorrow swept me off my feet in 2009. I took a long walk on the beach next to the oceans that we cried. And grief, she came and overstayed way longer than I liked. But I found joy in my life. I found joy, yes, she opened up my eyes. Gave me wings and halo rings and taught me how to fly. Ooh, 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 I feel like a million lives. I found joy in my life. Got me singing, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, oh, oh. I found joy in my life. Got me saying, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, oh, oh. I found joy in my life. Pressure pushed me to the edge, she worked me to the bone. And jealousy, she lied to me, said I needed things I don't. Same, she had a way of make me feel bad inside. But I found joy in my life. I found joy in the loneliness of night. I bought a rock and tied the knot and made her my wife. Ooh, 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 I feel like a million lights. And I found joy in my life. Got me like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, oh, oh. I found joy in my life. Got me like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, oh, oh. I found joy in my life. I found joy, yes, she opened up my eyes. Gave me wings and halo wings and taught me how to fly. Ooh, 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 ooh. I feel like a million lies. I found joy in my life.
Thank you, Jonathan. Oh my goodness. So I'm imagining that if y'all are like me, you're kind of thinking, well, that was an interesting choice for Memorial Day. When really we're, well, and especially after the course of this last week, the country is sitting in, the nation is sitting in some pretty deep and heaviness as we think about what happened in Texas this week. And I tell you, I questioned it a lot too. I want to give you just a little kind of maybe insight into how sausage is made in terms of our Sunday morning services here. Typically what would happen is, especially with Felina and I will come up with a kind of synopsis of what I expect my message is going to be and then share that with her, and she'll suggest a couple of songs, and we'll go back and forth, and it might be Friday before we've actually settled on what the music is going to be. Well, this week I woke up and joy just, I've been working from this book, Dare to Believe, and there's a chapter called Make Joy a Habit. And I woke up, and as I was sort of perusing, I knew that was just and it was instant. Like, I fired off an email or a text message to both Jonathan and Felina and said joy, and I had even been through a playlist that I'd been through, or that I had been compiling over some time, and the song that came up was the first one that you heard, the miracle song, You Are a Miracle. And so I texted that off. I said, what about this for Sunday? And Felina said, yes, of course. She said, I sent you that weeks ago when we were talking about something. Sure, let's do that. And then it was just a matter of a couple of hours, and all three of us had settled on the songs, and they were all about joy. Well, then Tuesday happened in Irvdale, and I start to question, is it really appropriate that we're going to be, or that I have this message that I'm thinking about in terms of joy? And so I wrestled with that a little bit, and those of you who get my e-blasts have maybe read a little bit about this already, but it felt like this was really not good timing, or that maybe it was even inappropriate to talk about joy at a point when, especially with Memorial Day, and we're sort of holding up the lives of those who have died in the name of their country. We're wanting to really hold in our hearts and in our minds and hold in love all of those who are suffering from the just trauma that's happened in this country over the last couple of years. Is it really appropriate? And what came back was just a very clear, it couldn't be more appropriate. Where it went next in my own sort of thinking or guidance or prayer work was around really making a distinction between happiness and joy. We draw this distinction a lot, you probably heard it. But happiness tends to be, at least as I'm defining it here, as many ministers have defined it, is happiness is really dependent on what's happening in the external. Right? If circumstances are going well in our lives, then we tend to be happy. And that's not a bad thing at all, to experience happiness at events that happen around us, or to experience happiness if we buy a new car or get the job we want or succeed at something. All of that's a beautiful part of human experience. Joy, on the other hand, comes from a deeper place that isn't dependent on those outer conditions. Joy is, as May Rowland suggests, that is if we make joy a habit, we actually cultivate a capacity to have that awareness of the potential for good and beauty and love to express in every moment, that awareness of God's presence and power to uplift and move through and transform anything. That becomes sort of our default consciousness. And as we practice that, as we sort of build muscle with tapping into that level of joy, then in the outer, when those tragedies happen, we have something to fall back on. That joy can arise from within in a way that we can be present to the pain and the suffering that's happening in the outer world, but to also, the word that came to me as I was writing this was to be, was it drowned? Now I can't remember the word. It was a great word. But it's almost to be overwhelmed and like swamped. That was the word. To be swamped by those feelings of the sort of negative capacity, to be swamped by those in a way that we really lose any sense of buoyancy. We lose any way to sort of move through it or navigate our way through it. Because what we know about the emotional aspect of those outer conditions is they're going to be changing all the time. Right? It's almost like we need to learn to surf those. And if we can stay present to them and stay clear to the energy of it so that it moves through and we're not swamped by that, overwhelmed by it, then we have the capacity to be present in a way that allows for transformation. So this idea of cultivating joy, of knowing joy through the song that she just sang, talked about through pressure, through jealousy, through all of those negative experiences of life that happen, that arise out of what happens to us. And to know joy from within allows us to move through those in a way that lets us be present to the fullness of life, the beauty of life, the real pleasures that are available to us, regardless of what's happening in the outer. Because whatever's happening in the outer is not the full picture of what our experience is. But if that tends to be the focus, if we are so swamped by that's all we experience, then we will drown in depression and despair. And what we're wanting to do is cultivate this resilience to be able to be present through the tough paces in life in a way that actually is more realistic. It's actually more real to see the fullness of the picture than it is to be sort of swamped by the tragedies. And that's not to say that we aren't present to the suffering of others, certainly. But joy gives us the capacity to be present in a supportive way rather than a way that just sort of exacerbates. So how do we do that? It's funny, I've been listening to all sorts of, I've talked a lot about how in our spiritual journeying that our beliefs evolve, our thinking changes, that we move through different sort of stages of development in the evolution of our consciousness, yeah? And so there was a point in my experience where, I came to Unity and knew that God was not that guy in the clouds upstairs. It's not an anthropomorphic kind of, and so I went through a sort of rebellion against any reference to God that would identify it as an entity, right? That God is something that's much fuller than that. God is infinite. There's no way that we can actually define it. So any way that we would give it form that made it separate and apart from us, I was trying to like wrestle through what that looked like, right? So I wouldn't use he, she, or father, or I wouldn't use any of those kind of traditional metaphors or images that we use for the divine, because I was trying to really move into that space of embodying it, right? God is in us as we are in God. That this gets reflected in the changes that we made in the closing prayer, the prayer protection. You know, we say the light of God surrounds us. I am light. That's essentially the concept that we're moving through there, that we are actually claiming our own divinity without having it be something separate and apart from us. Well, as evolution has gone, I've become, if God is actually a part of everything, then even in those images that I found limiting at one point, there might be comfort. So I've been listening to preachers that I wouldn't have listened to 5 years ago or even 2 years ago. And I found a guy this week that I really enjoyed. His name is K Jenkins. He's kind of evangelical, kind of Baptist. He's a real, not a Bible thumper, but he's definitely grounded in like hardcore Bible. All of his sermons are really evolved and developed out of Bible verses that he's memorized. He memorizes chapters and just he can quote chapter and verse all the way through, and that's what he builds his sermons around. Well, he was speaking to this idea of joy this week. And what he suggested as a way to sort of cultivate that resilience that I'm talking about, to be able to practice joy, to make it a habit, like May Rowland is saying here, he suggested that it's a sort of three-part essence. And so what I'm going to do is outline the 3 steps that he suggests with a little bit of background for how he would use them. And then I'm doing the unity take right behind it. So we're kind of getting that fuller perspective. But I love the way that he articulated this, so I thought I'd share it. The first is, and it's not a word we use a lot in unity, abide, to abide in. But the first step, he says, in terms of cultivating this capacity for making joy a habit, for living from that joy that arises from within, is to abide in presence. You would say abide in Jesus Christ, right? I'm saying abide in presence. And that's really the insight that I got from his perspective was really that it's about really understanding. We know that God is in all things. We know that we are one with God, and many of us have different ways of practicing that. In my own practice, it tends to be my morning meditation. I will devote a specific amount of time, usually it's about a half hour, where I am in meditation and practice, and just kind of waiting on that sense, that feeling, that a sense of being in the presence of God. And then I kind of go about my day. I know that has a definite impact on how I move through my day. I'm much more present and grounded as I move through it. But I pretty much make the assumption that, okay, I've done my meditation, I got my God on, and I can go through my day without really thinking about it too much. Well, John Jenkins, he don't play that. He's like, he doesn't meditate for 5 hours at a time. No, he doesn't. But there's not an hour that goes by that he is not praying. And he talks about like God being his buddy. God's in the car with him. He's talking to God. He's talking about God about whether he should pick up the phone. He's asking. He's like constantly checking in and feeding back with that divine presence. And it's not just a one and done, which is kind of what my approach has been the last, whatever it is, been my meditation practice. But I've started playing with that. Like, okay, before I answer a call, just ask, provide me the words. Okay, it's not this big. Usually, I would have to sit and ground and have my palms up and check in with my breathing and do this long process. Well, John has a completely different approach. It's just sort of instantaneous. Hey, this is where I am. Help me here. And so abiding in the presence, I think, can take a lot of forms. And I think it can take a lot of forms depending on where we are in that moment. So in terms of building a toolbox for joy, I would say open your mind and simply allow yourself to experiment with really making yourself available to the presence and the power of the divine. It doesn't necessarily have to be that, like my morning meditation is like, there's a comfort I take from that. And I can also extend it beyond that. If I'm willing to really abide in the presence of God and open to how that presence might be expressed, then I think we move into that space where we're much more available to Spirit in a more powerful way, yeah? So abiding in God, it can take a lot of forms. His next suggestion was to abide in the Word. And you know what? I'm noticing that I'm stepping all over my shoelaces here, so I'm going to kick my shoes off so I don't fall over at some point. So he would say, abide in the word. And of course, from John Jenkins' perspective, abiding in the word is abiding in the Bible. I already mentioned that he literally will write down a Bible verse, and then over the course of a week, we'll learn a whole chapter. He'll do a verse a day and get the whole chapter by the end of the week. Like that's sort of his abiding in the Word of God. He's constantly sort of bringing to mind Bible passages that speak to a situation they might be in, which is beautiful. My mother does that. My mother reads the Bible over and over and over again. She sits down every single day and reads. She does a chapter at a time. And she doesn't do it in order. I think she tries to do Leviticus first because she gets so tired of all the names. She wants to get the stuff that she finds most tedious over with. But then throughout the rest of the year, she makes sure that she hits every chapter before she starts over. She abides in the Word. And I see the difference it makes in her life. I think in unity, certainly we look to the Bible as a source of inspiration. But in unity, I think we're maybe a little more diffused in the way that we abide in the Word. I don't know if diffused is the right word. We're more diverse. That's probably a better word. We'll look to a lot of other sources for us to abide in the Word. But what we recognize is the power of the words that we hold in mind and the words that we speak. So what I would suggest to you is that abiding in the Word means being very, very, very diligent about making sure the words that you're holding in mind and the words that you're speaking are words that are aligned with the desires of your heart, are words that are aligned with the love and the power of God. Yeah. So John sort of he also talks about in terms of his abiding in the Word of God. He makes sure that in his car he's got his iPhone hooked up so that he's singing gospel songs. And he tells his congregation that if he could be microphoned like he is in the car, he would blow them away because he's so enthusiastic about his singing. And he pulls over and he has to praise Jesus. He really gets into it. And he sort of chides his congregation and sort of asks them, okay, what are the songs that are on your heart? And he chides them saying, yeah, I get it. It's Beyonce, right? Which certainly there might be joy, there might be some beautiful emotions there, but it's a different vibrational context, right? And so for us, what I would suggest is that to be very careful about the words. It's almost like it's a diet. The words that we hear, that we take into our minds and hearts, are every bit as important as the food we put into our bodies. And so, especially in weeks like this, when rhetoric and pain and suffering become sort of top headline news over and over and over again. We keep hearing pieces of that. And I'm not advocating that we sort of fast from all news, right? I think we do have to be informed about what's happening in the world. But as you consider the diet, your intake of language, of word, of ideas that you're holding, make sure that you're balancing those so that at least as much of the news headlines that you're taking in about sort of the material reality in the world, you have at least as much time that you're spending on divine ideas. And I don't mean you have to sit in meditation or be in prayer about that. You can, if you're willing to dig through your news feeds a little bit deeper, there is positive news. There is beautiful sort of inspirational stories that are happening all the time that aren't totally dominated by the headlines. This one, I don't know that it really fits, but I'm going to tell you anyway because I was so delighted by it. One of those digging down through, trying to find some different headlines was, remember there were the kids at Parkland School. There was a group of them that sort of went on, they got very involved in government and protest and trying to advocate for gun safety back when the Parkland, Florida shootings happened. Well, one of those kids he's grown now, and he's kind of still got that rebellious attitude, and he started this, what he found is that he was just very frustrated with all the conspiracy theories and just thought it crazy, right? He himself, as a result of the work that he had done after Parkland, he was well acquainted with those. There were conspiracy theorists that were suggesting that his dad and his uncle were child traffickers. It was just like crazy stuff that he's lived through. So he's sick of it. So he's watching one of these protests with one of the other conspiracy theories, and he had this idea. And so he started this movement, and it's called Birds Aren't Real. And it's a movement, it's totally satirical. Birds Aren't Real is based on this idea that he had that the government for the last 40 years has been replacing all of our birds with drones who are spying on us. So he just did a quick sort of Twitter feed and made up some T-shirts, and the thing has caught on. There are chapters all over the country now where people come out and they're doing these birds aren't real, which is their way of totally countering the words and the language and the ideas in a way that sort of makes fun of it without directly having to like confront and factualize all the other stuff. I just thought that was like a beautiful way of taking back the power of word, and he's having a ball with it, I think. And this was actually on mainstream media. I think it was on, what's the tick, the 60 Minutes. It was on 60 Minutes. So if you're willing to dig down through some of the main headlines, there are plenty of ways that we can nourish the diet of our sort of verbal intake that will balance out that stuff so that we can stay more present, and that the integrity of the words that we're holding in mind and heart actually can create a greater capacity for joy. Again, it's like learning to surf the negativity. There are pieces of that are helpful, even healing, to be present to as we move through them. But we want to stay afloat on top of those. So abide in presence, abide in the Word of God, the Word which uplifts rather than the Word which depresses. And then lastly, he would suggest abide in law. This is John Jenkins again. He says abide in law. And if he'd extend, he'd look, apparently there are 613 laws. I don't know if he's getting out of the Old Testament, maybe it's Old Testament Mosaic law, and he jokes about the fact that he cannot possibly maintain those 613 laws, but mindful of really being in integrity with the law of spirit, with the laws of God. In unity, we would say it's the laws of mind action, right? In unity, it's about really standing firm in our fifth principle, that our actions reflect the beliefs that we hold, that we take action. We're not just thinking about it, but we're actually out in the world acting from what we believe. I believe that sort of abiding in law is staying true to the ways in which we're showing up, that we're behaving, that we're relating to others, so that we're consistent with what we believe. The example that he uses a lot of them, but it's in unity. I'm trying to think. There was one. Luis, being integrity with your word, right? That's abiding in law. Being in integrity with your word. What you say you do, you follow through with. Jean, who am I thinking of? The 4 agreements. Is it 4? There's a fifth. He added a fifth. There's a new book too, I think. So, but that's like being impeccable with your word is abiding in law, right? It's not just the example that John Jenkins used was, it's not just telling a half-truth and thinking, okay, well, I didn't lie. A half-truth is a lie. If we're coming from this abiding in law, we're going to be very strict with the principles that we're upholding and embodying. So abiding in the law, being very clear about what we believe and uncompromising in our approach to being in integrity with love and peace and the principles that we know that Jesus demonstrated, right? Jesus and Buddha and many other spiritual masters. So I know joy seems like kind of an incongruous topic for us to be considering as we move through this time in this planet, in this world. But I believe that as we can really be present to the beauty that happens around us, as we can stay present to the ways in which we are nourished by spirit, by the planet, by earth, by others, that capacity for embodying joy, for experiencing it in balance with the reality of some of the other stuff, is how we really bring our spiritual power into greater demonstration. Yeah. So what I'd like to do now is to prepare for a time of meditation, and I would invite you to just be open and receptive to the many ways in which spirit reveals itself in joy.
There is a light, a holy light. There is a light, a holy light. There is a light, a holy light. there is a light that's shining for you, coming in to make you whole, is shining for you, coming in to make you whole.
So I invite you to breathe in more deeply as we move into this time of meditation. Become aware of presence, however you experience it. Perhaps it is as light. Perhaps it is as a sort of felt sense. However it is that Spirit makes itself known in you and as you, just become fully available to that experience here and now. Breathing in, we begin by abiding in presence. We open our hearts and our minds to an experience of wholeness, of oneness, of being loved, and extending that love outward. We become aware of ourselves as a living embodiment of divine energy. Receptive to a beautiful flow of good. And next, I would invite you to abide in the Word. Hold ideas of wholeness. Not only wholeness in your physical body, but wholeness in terms of the body of humanity. Wholeness in terms of the earth and the environment. Wholeness in terms of relationships. As we abide in the space where we allow divine ideas to be the dominant thoughts that we hold, we know and trust that we open ourselves to a greater experience of joy welling up from within. And thirdly, let's move into a space where we are abiding in law. Where we set a clear intention to let love lead any action that we might take. Where we choose those actions which would bring forth greater good. We choose compassion where there is suffering. Order where there was chaos. Peace where there is anger or frustration or turmoil. And love where there is anything unlike it. And as we prepare to bring this time of meditation to a close, abiding in presence, in word, and in law, we trust We trust God to do what God does through us and as us, that we might experience the joy that is the wellspring of all good. So it is, and so we let it be. Amen.
There is a peace, a holy peace. There is a peace. There is a peace, a holy peace. There is a peace that's shining for you, coming in to make you whole. It's shining for you, coming in to make you whole.
Prepare for our time of giving and receiving. I'm going to begin with our money moment each week. For the next few weeks, I'll be sharing one of the 10 commandments that's been adapted for prosperity. So these are the 10 laws of prosperity. This week, I think we're on the 4th law, which is remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. So you remember that God created the world in 6 days, and on the 7th he rested. So the 7th day, the Sabbath, is about resting. So what does that have to do with prosperity, this resting piece? The best metaphor that was presented, that Georgiana Tree West presented in this 10 Commandments of Prosperity, was one that I think it arises out of gardening, right? Working in the garden. If you think about seeds, we choose seeds carefully so that we know that we're planting something that will be fruitful. We prepare the ground, we plant the seeds, we water and tend, and then we harvest. Did you notice I skipped anything there? Water and tend to harvest. There's a space in the middle that we really have nothing at all to do with. There's a space of resting, right? Once the seed has been planted, as we're tending the seed, there is nothing we can do to make sure that that root's going down into the ground or that the sprout is. That part is all happening through the presence and the power of the divine. And the same thing happens with that which we want to create in terms of our prosperity. Right? That we hold ideas in mind, we cultivate that, we do what's ours to do. But there is a space where we need to sort of step back, quit digging it up and trying to check out whether it's happening or whether it's right, and allow Spirit to create the growth that's going to manifest the intention that we're holding. So remember the Sabbath and keep it holy in terms of our prosperity is remember what's ours to do and make space, allow time, create a restful place where we let Spirit do its job. 4th commandment, prosperity.
Now is the time when we plant our seeds for our love offering. I encourage you to give with joy this morning. Giving is safe and simple. And if you're online, there are links in the chat feature. But here are 3 simple ways to give. First, you can text the word give to 815-827-6052. You can give online on our website, unityns.org, or you can give the old-fashioned way by mailing a check to 3434 Central Street, Evanston, 60201. Please consider also making a recurring gift. You know, you can do that. There's an app for that. You can give consistently through an app to avoid, to give consistently. And you can also give consistently through your bank. You know, for many of us, we can set up an automatic payment through our bank. That's what John and I do. And that's important to give consistently because it ensures that there is funding here at UNS to keep things going and in a stable financial situation here at the church. So I encourage you to look into that if you're not consistently giving. It's easy. You don't have to even think about it. It just happens. And then if you're in the sanctuary today, you can give. There's a bowl in the back. You can drop your love offering in the back. So now let's bless our giving and our receiving together. And I'll encourage you to hold these words in your mind and really feel into them as you speak them out loud. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is. Amen. Please stand now as we embrace our prosperity with our offertory song.
All that I need comes to me. All that I need comes to me. The light of love and grace shines upon my face. All that I need comes to me. All that I need comes to me. All that I need comes to me. The light of love and grace shines upon my face. All that I need comes to me.
Thank you, musicians, Felina and Jonathan. Thank you, live stream team, and thanks to all of you who are either here in the sanctuary with us or joining us online. Your presence makes a big difference. Thank you. I have a few announcements before we close. If you have felt like this is coming home to you when you join us on Sundays for our services, and you would like to deepen your experience of spirituality and a sense of community, I highly encourage you to attend our membership discernment classes online. There are 2 sessions. There's June 10th and June 17th from 5:30 to 7 in the evening. You can get a link to register on the website. I believe there's also going to be a link in the chat on Zoom. So again, when we talk about our actions reflecting our beliefs, if you feel like you're in a like-minded community, please consider joining us. All right, and then we have a fall fundraising gala. Speaking of joy, these annual events, typically they're annual, pre-COVID, they are joyous events for social gathering and to meet like-minded people. And there is a date set for us for October 15th, Saturday. We're going to be coming together for food and fun at a new cool space in Evanston called the Palm House. So if you are interested in attending that, please save that date, October 15th, and perhaps you're even interested in helping out with the planning for that. Many hands make light work, so I'll encourage you to contact Persephone if you'd like to help plan and organize. We have our garden chat online coming up this afternoon at 5 o'clock. It's hosted by our own Sharon Myers, and you can get the Zoom link on our website and just click on that to join and connect with others in a more informal setting, talking about recipes and talking about the messages that we heard today in Reverend Kurt's lesson. And then I'll invite Persephone to come on up and talk to us about the Sunday mixer.
Hi everyone, happy Sunday. We are having a mixer following service today, so we're gonna have some beverages and snacks, and Bernadette and I would love to get to know everyone a little bit better and just chit chat, so we'll be on the patio for your conversation and camaraderie. Thank you.
Thank you, Persephone. So yes, here in Evanston, it is a glorious day. So if you're here with us physically, we hope that you're able to join us outside. And that is it. We're going to now listen to Felina and Jonathan, who are going to lead us in our final song, the Peace Song, and then Bruce will take us out this afternoon with a lovely prayer for protection. So I wish you all a very blessed Memorial Day weekend, and thank you for joining us.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, that peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joy is found. To take each moment and live each moment, peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Please join us in the prayer of protection. The words are on your screen. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is. I am divine. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Okay, look at that. We're unmuted, a few of us.
Can you hear?
Uh-oh, not yet. Okay. I don't know why I can always unmute. Just a second, I'm gonna try something I thought of last week.
Yvonne,
So-
can you hear me?
Oh, I'm okay
Yes.
now.
Fantastic. Yeah, because I went to the participant block. Anybody on that is not unmuted?
Naveen is still not.
Okay, so I'll look for
still
her
muted.
name.
Oh, hi, I'm hi. Hi, everyone. I think I'm unmuted.
You are. Hey, fantastic. Look, we have some other folks. We got Martin, whoa, look, Annie's lit. No, apparently, I did report that 2 of the 8 of us were not unmuted last time. And they said before turning it over to me, they would check. But I also think that I can unmute, or we can unmute by going into the participants block as opposed to the chat block. So I'm gonna try that in case there's somebody that's not unmuted. So how is everybody today?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. Yeah, okay. Did you see Reverend Kurt's blog on his plans for talking about joy? You know, he alerted us to the fact I'm not sure this is what I need to talk about, but I'm glad he did, because we need a little joy information, and also the difference between joy and event happiness.
Yeah, and that joy does not depend on the outer circumstance.
Exactly.
It's with your heart.
Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to share with you about what I got out of today, and then I want to hear what you have to say, is the fact, you know, like I've been on this news fast for about a year and a half. Okay, actually almost 2 years since the election. So where I'm pretty much not doing that. And recently I became aware of it's not like I don't get any news. There's other sources than, you know, being on television. But I'm almost sorry about it because, you know, probably 8 or 9 p.m. The day of the Texas mayhem is when I heard about it. And I just realized all the people that I had talked to without that awareness and that kind of thing. So I'm actually going to do a little more paying attention to quality news sources. So plenty of things. Oh, I love the music today, and I also loved remembering back when I was in present at Unity. I used to do joy workshops. I don't know, some of you may remember, maybe Dolores, where we talked about things that we can do to bring joy into our lives. So joy memories and joy, you know, just focusing on it every day and reviewing pictures and that kind of thing. Helpful.
I really like the focus of today's daily word and statement that love never dies. You know, a body may die, but the love and the remembrance that you have of them is something that can bring you, for me at least, it brings me joy to think of those that I love to have gone on. And I have their pictures all over the place because looking at them, they're gone, but they're still in my heart.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes they bring their attention to you, like, I'm here. Okay, yeah. You know, little bits of wisdom that you know, they would have said or done. So.
I've been thinking a lot lately. My mother passed in 2001, but I've been thinking about her a lot lately.
Mm-hmm.
And I miss her, of course. And I have more appreciation for her as I've gotten older and experienced different things in life. And she was an awesome mother. I didn't give her that credit. I was younger and stupider and
If
oh,
you'd known better,
selfish.
you would have done better.
You're right. I was selfish and all of that. But I just want to say today, I love her so much and I appreciate everything that she did for me.
Bet she loves hearing that today.
I can relate to that, Annie. I lost my mom too in September. And so you have that whole first year of you know, birthday, Christmas, all those whole first year of first that you kind of have to get through. And it does put more thought on your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you guys on that. I lost my mom in 2009, but I think I didn't really, I don't know. I think grieving takes a long time. I'm under a device performance thing pieced together right now about that. But in 2020, I lost a bunch of people. And then my sister committed suicide in 2020 last year, at the end of last year. So we're coming up on a year in August. So it's been really different. And the whole process has been interesting to just kind of like go through all this and figure out, you know, just how I feel. And it's just my dad and I left. So how he feels. It's really, yeah, interesting. All the first. So.
Yeah. I have something else I want to share. Just a second. They mentioned it at the end of last service, and I didn't. I intended to make a comment about it, but I didn't. And that was so that I could have my Heckie's t-shirt. They were talking about the anniversary of Heckie's passing last week. And the other thing, yeah, so I really miss him. I got a big picture of him in my living room, and it's I see that, and it's actually very joyful because he's got the world's most joyful expression, and the memories that I have are very joyful. The other thing is that this weekend is the second anniversary of George Floyd.
Yeah.
And you know, had I not watched the news the other day, I would not have been aware of that. I would not have believed it had been 2 years. You know, so yep. So bringing things up, even though they're, you know, so they don't disappear, you know, and just kind of fade into oblivion. That was like a huge transition in our society, and also gave us a kind of a model for future things. So everybody's, you know, doing even the loss that we had in Texas. People are handling that differently. They're being more upfront about what they'd like to see going forward. And I think some of that was the energy that we gained from the George Floyd experience. So there's kind of an upside.
Yes, and it's so hard to find joy in what happened in Texas. Excuse me, I'm getting over COVID. I had 2 weeks of COVID this past week. But I give thanks to God. I'm making it. I've survived it, I think. But it's so hard to find joy in situations like that. And just like it's finding hard to find joy when you're sick. And I'm never sick. I'm a person who never gets sick. So this is an eye-opener for me. And I'm learning to have more sympathy for those who do get sick. So I have more of an empathy now for that. And it gave me a chance to rest because I never take a break. Never, ever take a break. I'm constantly going. But yeah, it's hard to find joy in situations like that. But we know that that's the basis we must base all of our faith on, joy. You know, God is joy, not misery, not sickness, not death. That's how we see it. So just on another level, we have to keep seeing the joy, whatever joy there is, however we can find it, even though it's almost impossible at this point. It may take a little time, but we still have to find it there, you know. And I send sympathy to all those who lost their moms. I lost mine, oh God, 1996, so many years ago. I'm older than everybody on here, I'm sure. Well, no, not everybody. But I don't think. But the thing I would like to see is that we appreciate our moms more while they're here with us. Because I feel sometimes unappreciated, and I hate to say that, you know, being a mother and all that, but we just don't feel the appreciation while they're still with us. So I'm sure I didn't show my mother, you know, the appreciation I should have shown her. I just wish we would do that, you know, and just see the joy in whatever, you know, whatever we can find joy in. So
Naveen, you said it perfectly. That's what I was feeling. Like, I wish I had a thought differently then, like I'm thinking now, and showed more appreciation for all the things, all the wonderful things she did for me. I'm just surprised she didn't put me up for adoption or something.
Late in life, you know, like, how about today?
I know we take love for granted. That's all. We take love. Moms are the ones who love us the most, and we take them totally for granted. Not our fathers so much, but our mothers. You know, we just don't seem to know. We think they're going to be here with us forever, you know, but not the case. So,
and I'm glad to be able to share these feelings with you all, because I feel it in my brain and I feel it in my heart, but I don't talk about it. And I said, I'm just gonna say it. That's
and we're so glad you did.
That's,
you know, gave us a lot of opportunity,
you
know, to reflect on our own circumstance.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Naveen, I think it's human nature not to take for granted what we have every day. And when it's gone, then we kind of come to the realization what we had.
You know what? I want to say something to the people that feel like they didn't do all that they could have at the time. There's some of us that, like in the case of my mother, that's not true in every case, but I feel like from the first day to her last, she knew how I felt, you know, which I know that's a rarity. But at the same, by the same token, mothers are given a special measure of grace for that. You know, they got to get through those early years and do all the training, and they get hormones and everything else from the first second that you were born that enabled them to kind of put up with whatever, you know, really, it's like even this is the most beautiful baby in the world. And everybody in the world can say, that ain't so hot. But mom doesn't see it.
Absolutely.
And so we're given a measure of grace for even, you know, like, I don't care how I'm feeling about I ain't heard from my son in you know, X amount of time. But when I do, it's like it never happened. There were no gaps. So that's I hope, you know, that will give you, you know, she had a little extra measure of grace during those years, and she waited for this moment, because don't forget, you know, there's infinity. There is no such thing as time. So she's able to, I waited for this day, and look what Annie said.
Someone mentioned how difficult it was to see joy in the situation in Texas. And one wise person reminded me that one man did what he did, but we watch the community come together. We see the nation and the world coming to these people's grief.
Yeah, I picked up on that too. I was like, wow. I don't think they ever thought, I mean, I'm sure they didn't know this day was coming, but to see how everybody pulled together, that's amazing.
Yeah. Early on, when I joined Unity, I went to a prayer class, and one of the things that someone challenged me was, do you see all things as good? And I said, no. If 250 people die in a plane crash, I don't see that good. And the wise person told me, it is, if you believe in God, it's all good.
Wow.
We have to. And thanks for reminding us the joy we can see in that situation. People coming together. I never thought about that. It showed how much love we have in our hearts. You know, we don't see that every day. So a tragedy like this brings it out. So thanks for making us aware of that.
I think, like you said, you know, it's like the love our mother gave us, or our parents. We don't see it every day, but we know it's there, whether we're with our parents or not together. I'll be celebrating my mother's 20th death anniversary very shortly. So, you know, I'm called to go to her grave.
Wow.
Yeah, sorry to hear that. But it's a celebration, like you said, you're celebrating it. You know, she's always with us. You know, we know that in our hearts. She's in your heart. So
Yep. And that's how that person lives on. To this day, when I see a yellow rose, that's her.
yes.
Welcome, John. I'm seeing your hands and everything, John Fry. Yeah. Oh.
Girl, I'm on, you know.
I know.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, I think
After service.
you know, you're right. It's such a sad thing, but let's hope something comes out of it, right?
When I
That's right. It's no coincidence that in the same state,
like it did with
I'm
Floyd.
That's right. It's no coincidence that in the same state, the National Rifle Convention is taking. I don't think that's a coincidence. It's like, okay, all right now.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's an example. It's not joy. It's like,
Group.
I want to put out there also,
I'm sorry, Doc.
the young person who did do this heinous act at 18 years old, whether we understand it or not, there's something obviously was going on with that young person.
Yes.
Really, really consider
Yes.
what that is. I mentioned that my sister committed suicide, but no one knows why that is. And I know that for a lot of people, that's very like, well, you're not going to heaven or you're not doing this. I don't believe that. I think judgment is ridiculous and sick.
Yes.
And I think we should never ignore that. And clearly this young person knew that they were going to end up, their life was going to be taken. And the assumption was that it's going to happen, because why would you be able to survive that? Crashing the car, the whole thing. So there's something about what's going on with a young person to do this act for themselves to be taken out, because I believe that's probably what the line of thought was for them. And, with the Rifle Association and all that, the NRA, which I think is just ridiculous personally, we need mental health care.
Yes.
Both of them together.
Yes.
We don't need the guns, because why do you need guns? Nobody's hunting except for people who go out for pleasure to hunt. And we need mental health, because we have all these people who are homeless. We have all these young people who are getting destroyed with these online blah, 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 this, that, and the other. And they're failing to recognize the beauty of who they are right now, that things do change. Life is ebb and flow, feelings are ebb and flow, and challenges come. And if we can overcome them, you just become stronger and you just learn the lesson from it. But they don't know this. So as much as we lambash him and what the governor of Texas is trying to say and all those idiots, instead of doing that, they should be thinking, what is going on with our young people? Because this is the second one. The one in Buffalo killed how many Black people?
Yeah.
He was also 18.
Yeah.
So what's going on?
And also with an AR-15.
Right.
They've got to address the mental illness. To me, that's just not addressed enough. And
I think it's sad. I mean, I don't think it's uncommon for adolescents to go through a period of stress.
Yeah.
Luckily, when I was an adolescent, I didn't have a rifle. I didn't have all this. And not that I think I think I knew love from my parents, and, I didn't have resentment through society. I wasn't bullied excessive, and on it goes, whatever it makes some of these people motive to go ahead and shoot their grandmother and then go shoot a bunch of 10-year-olds. I mean, and just acting out. I think, like you're saying, we're all called to forgiveness. And, when I see people judge and say, oh, he's going to go to hell, he was evil, and on it goes. And I go, you know what? You're even called to do that, because we know Christ, when he was hung on the cross, he had to forgive.
They know not what they do. Yeah.
That's right.
Wow. Yeah.
So there's very heavy lessons here, that tug at all of our hearts and our minds. I mean, it's a challenge, that's for sure.
I thought, like Deetra said, I immediately thought about this mental illness. And when you were talking about your sister and, the incident in Texas, I'm like, if we don't address that, it's just a problem, like it's lingering.
It's like pretty pervasive too. And one thing, maybe these two big, most recent incidents will bring up is just how pervasive it is. It's not, I don't care how many security guards you put or how much training you give police, but if huge segments of society are on the verge of this at all times, it's not going to be resolved. Gun laws aren't going to help it either. it's got to be more attacked in different ways.
But I think in reality, it's not a huge amount of our society. It's one or two isolated people, but it's amazing what harm one or two people can do. I mean, you get magazines that can go ahead and shoot 50 rounds. Sandy Hook, that guy in 2 minutes fired over 100 rounds. And, no gun needs a magazine that can do that, and there were times where they limit that, and it was successful. Less suicide, less mass killings. That law expired, and now we have what we have. And I think there will always be challenges for all of us with some people who don't do good things. I mean, but I think in light of COVID getting over, even in our beautiful city here in Chicago, what has happened, I think, with people not having programs that, I'm sorry, we had COVID, so you couldn't go to a gym and play basketball. A lot of people were unemployed. And who do you think that mainly affected? The young are much more affected than any other. I mean, if you didn't have a job 2 years ago when you were 16, now you're 18, and you still don't have a job, and you're just coming out of this. I think I hate to see our beautiful city become a police state. I hate to see there major crimes happening in the city. We're going to now do social, oh, it's curfew, you got to get off the street. We're going to start doing our attentions on that. Bring some programs back so young people get jobs, they have recreation, they have places to go, they're bored, and there's nothing in their neighborhoods. It's all closed. So they go downtown because there's a lot happening downtown, and then things get out of control. But I think we're all called to, how do we solve this problem? And to me, like making curfew, making it a police state is no solution to a city, that's a world-class city.
It was shown that the kids learn how to use that particular type of rifle by these online games that they play. Shows them how to use that particular rifle.
Well, I'm a military guy for 22 years, and I have to defend that a little bit. I don't want to confront anybody here, but lots and lots of people have guns, and they're very, very responsible. And that's great. I'm definitely about gun control. I don't think we need an AR-15 in our home. I think that's insanity. I think there are laws that say I can't have a hand grenade or a bazooka or a tank, and those are reasonable, and there's limitations in what I can say. All our rights should have some control over them. It's not, they can go excessive, but I think we have to be very careful about not letting a bad thing turn our hearts. I know some people have come to me and said, I've lost my faith. I don't believe in humanity. These are awful things, this war, and the pandemic, and how people wouldn't get vaccinated, help each other out, on and on it goes. There's all kinds of things that people go off on. And I go, well, you have your faith or you don't.
Sure.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things at play here. I mean, the reality is we need as a society to listen to what Jesus always said, which is, what do they talk about? The branches of the tree, right? Everyone in their society has a purpose, and we need everyone. And I almost feel emotional because I've just seen so much of this cruelty, that you're talking about. And if more people just had empathy for this kid, but it's more than that. I mean, it's society. I mean, different groups like Democrats, Republicans, everybody needs to listen to each other, and they both have something valuable. This lockdown was damaging. Yeah, I know why they did it, but it hurt a lot of young people, like you said. It hurt a lot of older people that lost their. And we gotta balance these things better, and people need to work together more. It's just sad how it hurt a lot of people. Suicides, like you said, and the reality is, people listen. People are just so bandwagon, whatever everyone else thinks. And we got to just listen to people with different opinions sometimes and see the love of God in them too. And that, oh, wow, okay, maybe that's something I never thought of. I, for one, I mean, I had COVID at the very beginning of this thing, like one of the first people. And my whole family, we know a lot about health and medicine and science, and we were immune. It lasted 2 years, and we got it at Naveen. I know what you went through. I just got through it a month and a half ago. I'm finally to the point where I can function 100%.
Mm-hmm.
It lasted 2 years. So whoever says the natural immunity is garbage the last 3 months, no, that's wrong. So we all need to listen to other perspectives and not just believe everything we hear, like from our bandwagon, our friends, whatever my family or my friends think. I like to challenge them sometimes, but it's hard these days because people get so political.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I think the one good thing, if there was anything good about the pandemic, people started hearing some of the issues, and some of the issues started boiling up. You can't tell me racism hasn't been an issue in this country. And with George Floyd, and then, people started seeing things. They started seeing how the police treated the Blacks. And we've seen how there's injustice with the Blacks and the health. And, now we're seeing the injustice in our own city with these gangs going downtown. They have nothing to do, and they can quickly call each other on the phone and gather. And some of them are very angry, acting out. And I don't think
I
it's
like what you said about the gangs downtown. They're considered bad instead of troubled. They have nothing to do. And we see the mentally ill as bad instead of problematic.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get to the bottom of why they're acting out. They're mentally ill. They're just bad. We say they're bad. We don't say they need help, and that's the bottom of the situation.
Yeah.
Because these are kids who have absolutely, truly nothing to do and nothing to do anything with.
Mm-hmm.
When I see all these kids in the suburb where I live, the kids are in all kinds of band after school, sports and activities and blah, blah, blah. Just think if these kids had nothing to do as well. Who knows if they would not, do something as bad as some of that. Maybe not as bad, but they would be free to do all kinds of wreak havoc. Whereas these kids have zero things to do, zero. They have no monetary help, whatever they have. Their parents are working or lost and fell through the cracks themselves or whatever. So yes, you're right. These are kids who are just lost out there, and the mentally ill needs to be considered mentally ill and not bad. They're not bad people. You
don't judge a diabetic that they're bad because they have diabetes. I mean, that's their affliction. They need help, and we're all called to do that. But you do see people, even the shooting in Texas, they judge that person. How evil.
Yes, he's evil. They didn't follow his background, how it got to this point. He was probably a troubled kid. Nobody was paying attention. They pushed him to the side. Oh, he's just bad. I've seen it too many times. So many kids.
I see a lot of people making judgment, and I have seen the mother making a plea for the forgiveness of herself and her son, who she never saw this coming, and she's horrified by it. And then the father has spoken out, but I keep on hearing people make judgment. Oh, he came from bad parents. And I go, you know nothing about this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that just tells me about you. You blame parents for children's actions. Back in '68, when there were racial riots, I was in a high school and it swept through our high school. And I'm glad we didn't have all the guns, because some of us wouldn't be here today. And today there are kids that, they're 12 and 14, they got guns, and they, do what they do with their guns. And I didn't make good decisions at 12 and 14, but I sure didn't have something that could make my judgment have affliction on you, in my immature state.
And then you have to remember, I think that humans, if we just start there, humans do human stuff, right? So I really believe this isn't new. This thing that happened in Chicago with the kids going downtown, they're not bad kids. They're just kids with nothing to do. And they were just acting out and acting silly. In their mind, they were literally acting silly and extra. They weren't harming anybody until someone popped off at the mouth, and then a big eruption happened. But these kids were down there having a good time for hours. And then they just, sometimes you get extra, right? If you went to Woodstock, people were extra at Woodstock. People were real extra at Woodstock, but no one was saying anything because they were out in the field. It was majority white, and they weren't saying anything. They were smoking weed, smoking whatever, doing this, doing that. It was a lot of extra, but they were out in the field and they weren't carrying guns, none of that stuff. But young people were being over the top. And then when the time died down, they were like, oh Lord, we have to leave. This is not anything new. Not that I'm comparing this to, I'm just saying that young people do young people stuff. Mm-hmm. So this is not, you can go back 10 years ago and find an episode like this that happened in another state, another city, that happened here in Chicago. Yeah. The gun violence started happening in high schools when I was in high school. I remember in one of the high schools I went to in Eugene, Oregon, the kid killed his parents and then went to one of the high schools and started, it was like, what the heck happened? No one knew. This is Eugene. It's nothing but hippies and, people running track all day long. Like, that's all we did. But this kid, what was going on? That's the question. But kids when they mob, it's like the mob mentality that happens. We saw that. We saw that in the insurrection. Don't forget that. That was grown adults who did that. Yep. Not kids. And they brought guns and they brought weapons and they brought stuff and they did it on our nation's capital with no concern about what would happen to them, assuming nothing would happen. That was being extra, acting out. Look at me, see me. Look at how I'm doing this. I want to prove my point. So to me, it's just a carry-on. It's carrying over. The young people are seeing the adults do it. They do stuff because they're just nothing to do. Mad. Older people who were locked up, mad because they were locked up because of the pandemic. Someone trying to save your life in reality, and you don't see it that way because you feel you're out of control. And so you act out. I really feel like it's a lot of that. And if we don't address what is this all about, which is a mental health issue, and how do we help people through this time, then you're going to have it again. Mm-hmm. These things that have happened are going to happen again. I promise you. In 20 years, I'm going to be like 20 years older going, I remember in 2022, that was something, but they did that in 2022 because it happened 10, 15 years ago as it is.
And I think there's another major influence here, and that is where you get your information.
Yes.
And nowadays it can just spread like wildfire. And what can spread like wildfire is lies and not the truth, judgment and just reaction. And that makes a mob mentality in short order. And I think it's great that I can call my kids, I can call my grandchildren, and things like that. But there's another side to it that's not so great. And, when I watch some of these people have really extreme ideologies about, the Jews are using lasers to start fire and, Sandy Hook never happened. That's the federal government staging that. And those people, their kids, they send them to Africa. And oh my God, I can't believe what some people come up with and how they will hurt parents who lost their kids. There's this one gentleman for 10 years has moved 8 times. And when he went down to Texas, he forewarned them the worst is yet to come, because there's going to be this extreme group that's going to come and contact you and say, you're lying about your kids dying. The government's paying you for your child to go to Colombia. I mean, I cannot believe what these people went through in these extremes, and things like that. And it's insanity what mass communication can do and what people believe is the truth.
That's why I liked what Reverend Kurt was saying. Was it Reverend Kurt today? I've done a few things today, but about the birds.
Yes, that's a true. If you listen to, there's a podcast called The Daily, and they actually follow that guy and talk to him. I think it was on one of them, or it was on Think or something. It's brilliant what he did. It's like a joke. That's the whole idea. Is like, this is how stupid people will follow this, but his people are following it to make a point.
Yeah.
And it's like, you need to sometimes stop and think and stop being a follower. As my mom taught me, don't be a follower, be a leader. even if you stand out, people may not like it, but you know, and sometimes it hurts to be a leader. But don't follow ridiculousness. Use common sense and logic, and you'll go, well, that doesn't make sense. I mean,
and he did one more thing. I think that was incredible. He stood up to them.
Yeah.
Certainly, he was a father who was very hurt, but you know, they were saying awful things about him and what happened, and he went after them. And not that they didn't threaten his life and his children, posting his other daughter's pictures. I mean, he went through hell in so many ways. But you know what? I give that man credit.
Wow.
Yeah, the young man that's doing the birds thing is a young man who's leading that whole brigade, though. And it's amazing what that whole thing. It's and hopefully it spreads so that people can understand how ridiculous it is and what people use how the use of the internet can be done for negative, but also how you can use it for positive.
Yeah.
So a little joy has come out of that. That's the point I wanted to make about that. And recently, why that resonated so much with me is I've just been hearing all kinds of things about the impact of things like birds in our world. They're messengers. And at this time of the year where they're all screaming and yelling and getting your attention, if you focus and breeding, if you focus on birds as messengers, you know, sometimes they're like extra noisy, and ask, what are you trying to share with me? You know, and listen for responses. Birds are very special. So I love the fact that he picked, you know, birds as fake.
Yeah, when I get upset, I have a hummingbird feeder, and there's hummingbirds, and I just sit there and wait, and one will come along, and you know, they're just incredible little guys to watch.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a great way of getting people to question what they hear, because people believe way too much of what they hear. You know?
I like the word. I'm trying to think the word you used. It was like I thought you were saying, oh, there's so much copycatting going on. Let me see. Steve used a word that was sort of like copycatting that people are doing, that boiled down to just following, you know, what everybody else says. But it's, yeah, we've got to be leaders and you know, take some time, even our meditation time, to get a sense of what we really believe ourselves, and not just pick up, you know, the latest thing that they've heard on the news. That used to be a bad problem, and now it's like off the charts.
Yeah.
But I think they publicize it so excessively too, you know, so it's so hard. What is the reality? I don't feel like how many people are crazy? How many people, you know, you never hear, it doesn't sell deodorant if you're reporting about good people. Guess what makes the news is the bad crap, you know, that's going to keep people there. I mean, that Tucker Carlson, when the New York Times wrote that article about how he had failed, and now he's the #1 program, and then all that stuff that happened in Buffalo, who did he propagate all that from, and where did it come from? The Nazi Party of the United States of America. And I go, oh my God, I just can't believe it. But watching that specialty from the New York Times, this guy watched every one of his shows and then wrote about themes about them and where things were happening that were really private and kind of under the surface. And he made them very mainstream and certainly had influence. And even some of the words we hear today are from these really radical groups. And it's really sad that people will watch it time and time again.
Oh, Dolores, you were trying to say something before.
Yes, I really like the magazine, The Week, because what they do is they have a basic subject that's current, and they have the opinions of 4 different reporters, and they include both the conservative and the progressive line of thought. And it gives you an opportunity to make your own decision because you read both sides from 4 different journals.
Like that.
What was the name of that again?
The Week.
The Week. Okay.
The Week.
All right.
It's an expensive magazine, but I like it.
Is that an online magazine?
Well, you can. Yeah, you believe in good expense. Spending money the way you want. Well, we're going to have to wrap up now. So anybody have any final words that they want to share with us? I've really enjoyed our conversation. It's been very enlightening.
Thank you, ladies and gents.
Yes, thank you guys very much for listening and for speaking and sharing, and the wisdom. I will take it with me as I start this next week. And happy Memorial Day.
Yes.
Blessed week.
Yes. And we want to make sure that you continue to thrive and get better, Nadine.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'll continue to try to find joy.
That's right. That'll do it.
That's very good, Naveen.
Okay, here's a hug for everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Yvonne, for facilitating.
You're welcome. I enjoy it, kind of.
I enjoyed it.
You're good at it.
Yes, you are. You got joy going on there.
You're always good with the blessings, Annie. You know, you're the one. Okay. So. All right. I'll see you around.
Hey,
Greetings from Beechwood, Ohio. See, don't forget, I'm out of town.
See you next week.
Okay.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye, y'all.
Bye for now.